Hey, this is Todd, and I'm about to make some wonderful smoked lobster bacon mac and cheese. So follow me along here in the process. The first thing I'm going to do is I've got a hot skillet here that I'm about to throw the bacon into. I'm going to chop it up into just smaller pieces that we're going to add into the mac and cheese later on, but it's the first step I'm going to do in this process. I just bought a black cast iron pan, a 10-inch pan. It's a Lodge, and I have heated it up, kind of preheated it. They say to heat it slow, not to crack the pan by starting off brand new cold. So it's a pre-seasoned pan, so I don't have to do the seasoning of the pan, but I will try to keep up with that on a regular basis. This week I purchased some flaxseed oil, which they say is the best, even though it may be a little pricey to use to keep up with that. I want to make sure that it's good. I also purchased just a wooden spoon and some wooden tongs. I've been inspired by Sam the Cooking Guy to make this meal, but I'm also doing a variation. I'm going to make a roux, for which I'm going to make a cheese sauce, and then the thing that I'm going to do that's a little bit different than what he did is when I take the lobster, I'm actually going to smoke it on the Traeger first, and then I'm going to add the components, put them all together after I make the roux and the cheese sauce, and I'm going to cook the noodles for this al dente, or I think that's al dente. It's basically not cooked super well, so if you cook it all the way through, you're usually cooking, I'm told, between 8 and 10 minutes, and we're going to do about half of that so that the noodles don't fall apart. I know it's a little different for mac and cheese, but we're going to be doing rigatoni for our macaroni because as Sam says, you can actually go ahead and you can put that, it's got that hole in the middle, so it adds the ability to have more cheese and bacon and goodness deep inside of it. So got a hot pan now. It's been preheated for a while, and we're going to go ahead and listen to the dog whine in the back because she now thinks she needs attention and wants to go outside. Gonna turn this on. Put this in here. May turn it down a little bit. We don't want it to burn. My first time using a cast iron skillet, so hopefully all will go well. Now this is a 10-inch pan, and they say you don't normally want to stir a whole lot, but I've got quite a bit of bacon in here. So the bacon's been cooked in the cast iron skillet. It's all done. We have about 1.5 pounds. I'm not going to use all that. I'm actually only going to do about 1 pound maybe to mix in there. It's not supposed to be the primary thing, but just add a little extra flavor. I'm getting ready now. My next step is to grate the cheese. The recipe that I'm working off of basically calls for about 1 cup of each type of cheese. Now different recipes show different types of cheese that might complement each other, and I will be the first to admit this is kind of trying this out. This is the first time I've made this, so I'm doing something that I want to do, not as much what the recipe on the videos were showing before, but I'm going to do some extra sharp white cheddar cheese. I'm going to use about 1 cup of that. I'm going to use 1/2 of this bar of cream cheese to add to the creaminess, because this is not supposed to be something that's stringy. This is supposed to be creamy, just creamy, luxurious goodness, okay? We're going to make all of this with a roux here in a moment. So I also am going to use some smoked Gouda and some Gruyere as well. So it'll give that extra tangy flavor, make sure we have that smoky in there too. And then the whole thing, once we put this together, it's going to go, like I said, on the smoker for about 1/2 hour to really get that smoky goodness throughout all of the whole mixture with the pasta and the lobster in there and everything. So now the reason that I am hand shredding this rather than buying shredded cheese already done is because they say that they are additives that are put into shredded cheese that make it anti-clumping, but I'm thinking that from what the recipes are telling me, is also going to create a problem for us when it comes to making this creamy and luxurious. So I'm working on measuring out here about a cup of this Gruyere and hoping this is going to just be delicious as all get out. And we're not quite there to a cup, so continue here. And I'm sure it's okay if you go a little over, but you don't want to go short. So now on the smoked Gouda, I'm actually going to cut the rind section off of this before I start to grate it. I have no idea if this combination is going to be okay for mac and cheese, but it just sounds, oh look, it came right off. It just sounds wonderful to me. So, you know, I love smoked Gouda. I don't know if you love it. I don't know if it's good in mac and cheese, but we're going to give this a go. And again, I'm going to do about a cup worth of this. And this seems to be a more creamy cheese than the Gruyere. It's definitely softer when you're doing this. On the extra sharp white cheddar, I am using sliced cheese that I got at Costco. Didn't find just a bar, but again, I don't think this is going to be a make it or break it kind of thing. Sharp cheddar for a lot of people is by itself maybe a little bit too sharp, a little too tangy, but I think the combination of all these together, I think is just going to be wonderful goodness. So we will just have to wait and see how the verdict comes out for this. Okay, so the cheese has all been grated and prepared. It's ready to go. We've got 8 little lobster tails here that we're going to be using. The Traeger is preheating right now as we speak. We want that to go to about 300 degrees, and they say roughly about 20-25 minutes for lobster tails on there at that temperature. So we're going to shoot for that. Meanwhile, what we're going to do is we're going to start our rigatoni for our macaroni, for our pasta. We're going to start that boiling in the pot, and we're getting ready here in just a moment to start the roux. And the roux is something that you have equal parts of the flour, and at this point we're using just all-purpose flour and butter, and for that we really enjoy the Irish butter. I don't know if you guys have ever had that Irish Gold butter. It's wonderful. So we're going to use that to start the roux. Once the roux is going, and it's been going for a little bit because you want that flour flavor out of it. You want the butter to kind of coat that and make it just wonderful goodness. And the roux actually helps to bind all of your cheeses, and so it'll turn it into a cheese sauce, which will then pour over the pasta when the pasta is done. So the pasta is going to be, when I say done, about 4 or 5 minutes in length, because you don't want to cook it all the way, because we're going to put all this into a big pan and put it out on the smoker, and then it's going to be out there for about 30 minutes. So we don't want it to cook all the way for the pasta, because we're going to put all of this mixture out there on the smoker for about 30 minutes to get some wonderful smoky goodness flavor throughout the whole thing. Okay, so the Traeger is at about 300 degrees preheated, and what we're going to do is we're going to put these 8 lobster tails on here. Now, I'm not seasoning them at this point. We're just going to put them straight onto the Traeger, and like I said, probably about 20-25 minutes in length. Okay, so we've got our water on right now, and it's trying to get it ready to boil, and then we'll add the pasta into the water, and like I said, boil for about 4 or 5 minutes. And the other thing we're doing here is we have a half a cup of butter, and we're going to do a half a cup of flour, because it's supposed to be the same amounts to try to create our roux. before we go ahead and we put in the cheese and slowly stir that in. So we have to have this going first. So, okay, so the butter is fully melted, and what I'm doing is I'm slowly stirring in the flour, and I'm going to turn, I think, the heat down just a little bit. You don't really want it sizzling, but you want this well mixed. So just keep on stirring while I'm putting a little bit in at a time here, and this whole thing will thicken up, and then the cheese can be slowly added in to create our wonderful cheese sauce. Even after it looks like it's together, you want to continue to stir it a little bit, because I've heard that, you know, that raw flour taste is not something you want left over. You really want it well combined all the way through. Our water's still trying to come to a boil over here, which takes a while for a big pot of water. Now remember, folks, all of this is just an experiment. I've never made this before. I'm just going off of some videos I've seen, some people like Sam the cooking guy, who's an inspiration to me, and just really looking forward to making some wonderful, basically comfort food for the family, even though it's not the fall or winter months or what have you. This looks like it's pretty good here. Just a second, we're going to start to stir in our cheese. Alright, so I screwed up on the roux, and what we're going to do is redo the roux. I'm going to re-shred more cheese. The pasta's been in for 5 minutes. I just took it off of the heat, and I'm going to go check the lobsters. Okay, just took the lobster tails off, and I'll wait for them to cool just a bit before we slice them and get the meat out of them to chop up and put into the mac and cheese here in a moment. But first, I want to show you what a bad roux, or me doing poorly, is all just the butter and, you know, it's just greasy. So I screwed it up, and we're going to try that again. Okay, so we've got the mac and cheese put together. The roux and everything came together on the second one. We've got breadcrumbs that we just poured into the skillet. We're going to put some butter in there. And as you can see, this nice lovely pile over here of lobster is getting ready to go into this mac and cheese here in just a minute. Whole thing will come together, and then we're going to put it back on the smoker for about 30 minutes at 300 degrees. Okay, folks, so here we go. We've got this wonderful looking mac and cheese here. We put the bacon in there, the lobster in there, and we've toasted some wonderful breadcrumbs that now we're going to put on top, and then sprinkle a little bit of the bacon on there. And my dog is going to help to pick up anything that I've dropped. So bear with me just a second here. Going to line this up, and then we're going to put this whole thing out on the smoker. So just kind of dumping this on here, then I'll spread it out a little more evenly. No perfection here, just great taste. I've already had a piece of the lobster. It was fantastic. And we had a couple little samplers in here, my little kitchen elves that were helping that don't want to be in the video. And they tasted the mac and cheese already. Oh, there's my daughter.
It was amazing. I've been
so,
sneaking pieces.
Getting ready to put this whole thing out on the smoker, but I'm going to just top it with a little bit of the bacon here that we had left over, because you can never have too much bacon. My daughter gave me at Christmas time one of my most prized possessions now, which is this little framed sign over here on the end. If you can see that, I'm not sure if you can. It says, "I love you more than bacon," which is saying a lot, because bacon is just scrumptious. See, we got a nice little covering on there. Doesn't that look lovely? looks stinking delicious to me. And now when we come back, we're going to put it 30 minutes on at 300 degrees on the Traeger. Stand by. Okay, so we were at 300 degrees on the smoker for 30 minutes, and we've got the finished product right here is our smoked lobster bacon mac and cheese. And we've got another surprise for you in a little bit that's in the oven right now for dessert. That is going to be amazing. Folks, this is a Blackberry Cobbler that we made just coming out of the oven. And so here we have homemade Blackberry Cobbler. And that's not going to come off of there. And, of course, you can't have some good Blackberry Cobbler without having a nice scoop of vanilla ice cream from Bluebell. Now, if the lobster mac and cheese wasn't good enough, how about a little bit of this? What do you think? Oh man, that's going to be hot too. But that's why we got ice cream too, right? Okay. I will show the recipe of this being made sometime soon because I know this won't be the last time we have this.